The World Cup qualifiers have ended and everyone's excited to see their favorite pros compete in the finals. Yes! They have insane building fights, the endgame versus 1v1s, the impressive headshots. But, there's one thing that viewers forget to watch: the decision making. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Keith Allen, and today we're gonna bring you another tips and tricks video. This time we've beeped up an amazing, insane, absolutely underrated topic called decision making. You guys are probably thinking, I know how to make good decisions correctly, but let's be real, I don't see you competing in the World Cup. Okay, you know what? All jokes aside, we know you guys got the skills, but the info you get from this video, look, it's gonna help you rise above the competition. It's gonna set you apart from your opponents and bring you those W's. Decision making, guys, is very important in Fortnite. We make decisions almost every second of the game after exiting the bus, and this ultimately decides our outcome. Should I take this fight? When do I rotate to the zone? Perhaps should I go for high ground? The list is endless. While it's certainly impossible to always make the right decision, it's possible to make enough good decisions that winning the game is a guarantee. Hopefully this guide will help you make smarter and better decisions and help you progress to the pro level. So the Fortnite community has been discussing this topic for a while. Taking a fight in the wrong circumstance can not only be dangerous, but lethal. We've all been through those situations where we engage the wrong player and winded up losing. So the question comes, when do we take the fights? So you're gliding down towards Salty Springs, right? And you want to beat another player to the house. Probably not a good idea. If you happen to land inside and don't get a good weapon, there's a pretty high chance the enemy will have a better gun than you. It's like a 50-50. And why would you want a 50-50 chance of dying off spawn? High-level games are usually very limited and don't offer many chances in your favor. So you always have to make the smart decision, not the riskiest one. We've seen that many of the World Cup qualifiers do indeed land at remote spots. Some may even have landed in Tilted and other resorts, but in those instances, they did not land near anybody. They made sure they were alone in their building. Here's a graph showing all qualifiers from Week 9 and their landing spots. Check this out. Just think of how intense things would get if you took a fight early game. Even if you won, you only now have 30 HP left. Now you've exposed yourself to the possibility of another enemy coming to third party, and it's game over. So the question is, how do I stay alive? Well, simply just don't take fights early game. I'd even advise you to stay away from fights mid-game. Instead, gather mats and a good weapon loadout. Make sure you're ahead of your opponents for when the time for action really comes, you'll be ready. The ideal time, guys, to get most of your kills is in the late game rotations. That's when you have the upper hand. What most people really just don't understand in Fortnite is that you don't always need to take the fight. Yeah, some opponents will get blindsided and decide to rush at you, just for the sake of it. But in Arena and World Cup game modes, the competition is a lot more intense. Every player you decide to rush could potentially be a better player than you. Unless you're absolutely certain you can claim a kill, it is better off to avoid the possibility of an early death. For example, if you have no choice but to land in a house and you pull a shield and combat shotgun while your opponent is below you, chances are you're gonna kill him because what are the chances somebody's gonna pull your exact loadout, right? Or if you finish looting your landing spot and your loot is terrible and you don't have a shield, you probably won't be able to get any replacement or even place top 25. The enemy you push is guaranteed to have better loot than you and is going to boost your chance of survival. But hey, overall, the only time you should be engaging fights is if you have to, or have the advantage. People are always looking to third party, and chances are, if you don't finish your opponent off in a 30-second time span, another opponent will arrive and make your life, a whole lot harder. Oftentimes, somebody will rush you and you'll be forced into a fight. In this circumstance, you shouldn't run or play chicken, but try and fight them off and show them who's boss. In an average Fortnite game, you'll see players rush others like they have nothing to lose. You think things would be different in the World Cup, but guess what? They're not. Even though there's millions of dollars and qualification spots on the line, people are willing to push you no matter what. This type of mindset is terrible and will get you absolutely nowhere. We've seen it time and time again, guys. Players push you in the most ridiculous circumstances, making the match miserable for both players. Now let's get to our first rule. Pay more attention to your environment, the storm, and your loadout. Many people decide to make a decision without fully thinking things through. That's the reason why many top players that have a more passive-aggressive approach do better. Some examples would be Tfue or Bizzle. They're constantly surveying their surroundings and making sure they aren't pushing with a low mat count. Or when the storm is all the way across the map, that's when they do it as well. They just make sure their current loadout is optimal and enough for a push. In fact, Tfue sometimes doesn't even go for shots. If his enemy disengages, he will too. Why waste 500 materials and a whole bunch of shields for one kill mid-game? Can you answer that for me? This guy knows in the late game he'll have plenty of opportunities with his AR to pick off kills without wasting any mats. Many people think being mechanically skilled can buy them a free pass to endgame. And this is where they're wrong. Even the top builders and editors can't escape dismal situations they've been putting themselves into. You know, in the past, mechanical skill was enough to pull people out of dangerous situations. However, this isn't the case anymore. People are getting more and more mechanically skilled, which means it's becoming harder even for top players like Mongrel, Clicks, or Mr. Savage to simply dive headfirst into a situation and make it out unscratched. Because Fortnite is an open sandbox game with endless possibilities, you can't rely on the same technique you used last game to work in this game. Every single game is different, and you guys need to have many options and approach every scenario based on your circumstances. By surveying your environment, materials, or even loadout, you're guaranteed fantastic results. I'll say it again, next time you decide to push someone, look at the storm, where your enemy is, and how much health and shields you have. For example, jumping into people's boxes may work a lot of the time, catching most opponents off guard. Although the time will come when you do it to the wrong opponent, and you will wind up getting killed. You know, most of our decisions shouldn't be based on the strategy we're used to doing regularly. It should be based off of numerous amount of plays. We have to make an informed decision based on our current situation, whether it be, health or shields, materials, weapons, items, and zone. The reason why we decide to take a heavy sniper would be to get easy wall replaces. Or the reason we decide to launch pad early is that the zone is far away. These are just a few examples of calculations we need to make based on our environment. You know, many people think Fortnite is just a typical shooting game with a building aspect, but that couldn't be further from the truth. You know, there are so many different situations to take into account. And if we do pay more attention, then you're guaranteed to produce outstanding results. Our final and important tip for decision making is taking advantage of your opponent's mistakes. Yes. Now hear me out. This is a lot more complex than it sounds. If you've ever watched high-level players, they usually allow their enemies to make the first move. They know all the tricks in the book, so it's very easy for them to counter an opponent's move. Allowing your opponents to strike first ensures that you can plan 2 steps ahead. I mean, think of the last time you pushed an opponent and got outplayed. I'm sure the beginning of your fight went something like this. The moment you start a push and get countered immediately, you start to realize this guy knows what he's doing. This, in turn, affects you mentally. A great example of this would be when you first fight against a pub player. Once you see he's a noob, you immediately push him and your confidence level soars high. But the moment you go against somebody who clearly knows what they're doing, you start playing more carefully. This testifies that we play better against people we perceive to be worse than us. So, next time guys, let your opponent make the first move and follow up with a counter. Here's an example from the pros. You know, most players will usually only build up very minimally after starting an engagement, waiting for the enemy to make his move. If the enemy starts building for high ground, Tfue starts building too. But if he decides to overbuild, well, he's just gonna shoot him down, blasting him again as he falls. Let's roll an endgame example of Clicks. You might have seen him build fight others and notice that he waits till they make their move. Meanwhile, he stalks from above, waiting to strike.
$15? All right, bet. Donate $15 or so. Same thing that you did before. We took off a round since someone built.
You getting mad? I'm getting rich. You getting mad? I'm getting rich.
Ending or streak.
You getting mad? I'm getting rich. You getting mad? I'm getting rich.
IGN.
Get the graph first. You can graph up. You can graph up. Go back on. Go back on.
I didn't get one. I didn't get one.
All right. Wild Liquid Fiber currently tryharding. You're gonna hear him breathing, chat. He is literally smoking out,
bro.
Trying his hardest for that fat $5. Too scared to receive the heat. Dude.
So, as you can see, Clicks is very good at countering his opponent's every move. This is the ideal way you want to play, guys. It doesn't mean you need to do everything slowly, although capitalizing on an opponent's error is a sure way to get ahead. So, those are our top 3 tips for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let us know what you'd like to see next down below. Hey guys, once again, this is Keith Allen, and I would love to hear from you on my Instagram, so send me a message. We got a lot more stuff coming out. Talk to you soon.